Hello and welcome to Mind Shifters Radio. I'm Tim Hayes. I'm your host for the first hour. And today is Wednesday, July 2nd, 2025. As always, we're grateful to everyone who's choosing to join us here today, whether you're listening live or through the archives, as we spend another couple of hours teaching and supporting people in using some of the most powerful, effective, efficient, and accessible tools I've ever encountered. These tools are available absolutely free through the tireless efforts of Dr. Michael and Jeanie Ryce on the website at whyagain.org. If you go to that website and click on the two words that say Start Here in the upper left-hand corner, it will take you to a page where you can download and read Chapter 24 of Dr. Michael Ryce's book. His book is titled, Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And that chapter of the book contains a narrative description and explanation of the primary tool in this work. That tool is called the Reality Management Worksheet, sometimes called the Reality Management Wake-Up Sheet. And it's a tool I've been using to great effect for over 20 years now to improve the quality of my life and most of my relationships, and to turn any negative emotional experience I have into part of the infallible guidance system that each and every one of us has been given. You can also download the actual worksheet process itself. It's a simple PDF file. Click the link, download it, print it off, copy it as often as you'd like, and use it over and over again absolutely free. You can also download a whole host of audio files of shows just like this one, where people have been stepped through that worksheet process. And if you choose to listen to them even repeatedly, they can serve as a powerful tutorial for you to help you get maximum benefit from these tools in the shortest amount of time possible. You can also go to your app store and type in the three words Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness. And if you choose to do that before you're done typing the word forgiveness, you'll see the glowing heart icon. If you tap on that, it will let you download a completely free and private app that contains the Reality Management Worksheet. It contains an abbreviated version of that worksheet process, and it contains a copy of the Dragon Klingon game, which is a wonderful way to introduce these tools to even younger audiences. We hope people do all of that soon and often, primarily because it tends to improve the quality of people's lives the more they actively apply these tools in their lives. And secondarily, because it tends to promote comments, questions, answers, and testimonials. If you have any of those to share with us, we'd appreciate you doing so, giving us, send an email. You can email me at tjh@mindshifters-academy.org, or you can email Jeanie at jeanie@whyagain.org. That's whyagain.org. And if we get a question or a comment from you, we'll address it on the internet show, and then as time allows, send you a notification about what day and time that occurred, so you can listen back to the archives for your feedback or input. And if you're able to join us live, you can open up a Zoom window or call on the phone, one of the many numbers that Zoom promotes for their use. And our meeting ID number is 853-2357. 4173. That's 853-2357-4173. And you can participate either with audio or video or neither and just listen in. We're glad to have you. And we're especially grateful whenever anybody chooses to comment or let us know how they found out about this work, as that is always of interest to us. We'd like to know how you connected with this work, or whether it's that you found it on your own, or somebody introduced you to the work, or you've been at it longer than anybody else here. Always curious as to how people find us and what they're finding useful as they decide to spend time with us. And it just makes it a boatload easier for us to live into our intention with this work when people let us know how these things are landing for them. What's of most value to you in what we're spending time doing here? 1 hour a day, 5 days a week, and then 2 hours a day, 5 days a week. As we are highly invested in helping people get access to and get practice with some of the most effective tools I've ever encountered for managing one's emotional life and relationships. And as we were talking about yesterday, I had somebody in my office who's basically having his life driven, his life choices driven today by a wounded, somewhere 5 or 6 year old version of himself who has decided that it is intolerable if he believes he has been made fun of or ridiculed or, in his words, emasculated. And we are offering people a chance to become liberated from those kinds of really unproductive, old trauma-driven patterns. And as we mentioned, one of the ways to get access to that is to pick up Michael Rice's worksheet titled 3 Early Memories of Conflict and get very clear about where the patterns that you're living your life from today, where did they originate? What's the origin story behind the intense negative emotional states that you generate and that your mind keeps telling you are being caused by people and things outside of you? When in truth, we understand that it's always an inside job. And that's why tools that have me focus on the inside and on my internal experience, that's why they can be helpful, because it's all happening on the inside anyway. If in truth my emotional state was actually being created by what someone else did or said or didn't do that I think they should, then there would be no point in me picking up a reality management worksheet or any other kind of tool, whether it's Byron Katie's worksheet or Diedrich Wolzak's worksheet or listening to any of Guy Finley's stories or his techniques or tools for letting go of negativity. If it was an outside job, if we are actually being offended by people outside of us, then the only thing that makes sense is to teach people how to manipulate or change the people outside of them. It doesn't make any sense whatsoever to help people work on the insides if their upset is being created by the people and situations around them. So if you've gotten tired of living as though you are being buffeted around by the wind or like a dried up leaf floating on the surface of a river getting swept downstream, if you're tired of feeling as though you're just that life is happening to you rather than for you, then welcome. I think you will enjoy learning and gaining mastery over the tools that are offered on the website at whyagain.org. And we're glad you're here, and we're open for comments or questions. We've been spending a considerable amount of time getting ready for Christian Sundberg to come and share some time with us on August 8th, and it's just about a month away now. And the way we're getting ready for that is to be reading through his book once more, reading through the book, A Walk in the Physical. And in that third section, he's doing a Q&A. These are either questions that people have asked him or questions he's come up with, and the answers that seem most reasonable to him. And he says, listen, I don't have all the answers. I'm a very flawed spiritual seeker just like everybody else. And the kind of things we're talking about here go past words every new heartbeat. So let's not get too caught up in the words, and let's watch what happens inside of us as we hear these things or we read these things. And if we notice a tightness or a tension or a negative emotional state, the invitation is for us to turn the focus inside and ask ourselves, how am I creating that emotional state? Which of the tools that Michael and Jeanie make available would be best for me to use to dismantle this upset so that I can get an entirely different view of the current situation? So this set of Q&As, I think the last one we read was, what's the point of coming back over and over again in life if we're already perfect, etc. And the next question is, would the soul ever plan to take part in something harmful? For example, would a soul ever agree before coming to Earth to be a person that rapes and abuses others, or is that the human side of us? Conversely, does the soul ever agree to be the victim of something horrible and tragic? If a soul decides to be a part of these circumstances, what is the purpose of those experiences? And so Christian writes, first, souls do sometimes agree to commit to experiences that have a high potential, although it's never a requirement, but it is a potential, for the experience of harm. In other words, being, quote, a victim, close quotes. And this can possibly lead them to causing harm to others on the stage of any given play. In other words, what's happening at a bigger level in consciousness is that I'm always safe. I'm always connected to everything. I'm always aware of my true nature as love. And yet, this tiny bit of my consciousness that's invested in this physical body has forgotten most of that. But it doesn't mean it's not still the truth. The capital T truth is your essence can't ever be chipped, dented, rusted, faded, or broken in any way. So he says, souls do sign up for these different, quote, roles, close quotes. But from the soul's perspective, the incredible opportunity of those experiences is apparent. It is an opportunity for the refinement of being through the actual knowing of something extreme and seeing if and how one can shine love through or refine themselves even through that experience. That is, we're provided with a valuable opportunity to meet even that experience that we would call intense or abusive or harmful, and meet it with love or bravery to see if we can actually make loving or brave choices even when these difficult things are happening. It's also valuable in that we can permanently develop our ability to actually know something by knowing its opposite. For example, we can forever know and enjoy freedom more if we've actually experienced a real lack of freedom. Also, we often yearn to apply ourselves in a way that can actually help others, even within difficult circumstances. So we might sign up for living a difficult experience so that we can be there for someone else who has also is going through that same experience. As to whether or not we sign up to harm others, I do not experience this in my pre-birth experience. As he says, as love is our nature and our aim, not intentional harm. However, we do sign up for certain roles that from the human perspective might seem negative. But those roles can actually help those we love develop in ways that are important to them. Even in those cases, I feel it would never be the case of being required to cause harm. Rather, we sign up for highly constraining, highly challenging circumstances, and then we strive to bring light through those experiences. Even knowing that many times we may end up being, quote, overcome, close quotes, by those circumstances. Once we're here, we might feel overcome. We might feel like we've bitten off more than we can chew. And that might mean a temporarily rather damaging personality can result because we're so overwhelmed and we're so caught in our pain, fear, and sadness and acting from that pain, fear, and sadness rather than acting from this rooted knowledge at the center of our being that our true nature is love and that our purpose for being here is to get better and better at extending that loving energy in more and more difficult constraint sets. So it might happen that in the flow of life, people end up participating in things that are, quote, harmful, close quotes, to another physical body, etc. And yet, at our essence, we're all here to expand creation, to have experiences, to extend love, to get better and better at holding on to our awareness of our true nature in more and more challenging circumstances. At least that's Christian's take on it, and that's his guides or teachers' take on it. The next question is,
Dr. Tim,
yes,
I have a question.
please
This
ask
is
away.
Susan B. over here.
All right, Susan B.
We had a discussion in our support group today about one of my grandsons who is acting in a very belligerent way, especially to his family members. I've talked about him before. My question is, we began talking about exorcism, and I know you have a Roman Catholic background, and even in the Episcopal Church, a bishop may be called to do an exorcism. Now, this is a kind of cleaning out of demonic entities or forces or whatever. It also does not require the willingness of the person who is acting out, which means it's outside, it's not psychotherapy. And they even, in this group, were talking about the fact that some exorcisms can be performed at a distance without the afflicted person even knowing that this is happening. One of the great things about the tools is that they're useful for people who are basically healthy, insofar as they can tell that they are not well and they want to make another choice. So they can choose to be willing to change thought patterns and beliefs. In the case of an exorcism, that's just not, it's a totally different thing. And I wondered if you're talking about what you're talking about with Stephen Christian Sundberg's book is the fact that a soul can come willingly and in the service of love to life on the planet, but end up through trauma or whatever, acting the opposite and doing maybe great damage, even though at base that person is love. I wondered if you could put those two together or just talk about where exorcism might figure into anything that you've been teaching or what your opinion is on it.
I was going to say words like refuse. I refuse to be drawn in. I withhold opinions of things that I have very little knowledge or experience of and with. And so I don't go there. I know that there are people that's their bread and butter. They've got their whole either worldview or their whole business model arranged around that. And those are the people I would direct you to. I don't know anything about exorcisms except what's been portrayed in movies.
All right.
And so as I've said over the years, my what resonates best with me in these teachings are the ones that talk about how, as Christian has so far in the Q&A session here, that we have this, like Bruce Lipton talks about, the power of belief. We should call it the belief effect rather than the placebo effect, right? Because what our minds create is so powerful. The mind energy as a creative force is so amazingly powerful
Mm-hmm.
that we could use it, and we do often use it, to create what we call a consensus reality. And if enough people get on the same page with their mental emotional energy, we have, you know, psychologists that study the concept of the mob mentality and the groundswell of influence and how riots get going, and people study that stuff because it's
Mm-hmm.
so powerful. And so I absolutely believe that a number of people could get together and have their mind energy so focused on the fact that we have a demon among us that they actually, their mind energy creates experiences for them that are undeniable, that there was
Mm-hmm.
an outside force here, some kind of a demon.
Right.
But what's the essence of it, right? Is these teachings that keep saying to us, you have the choice, you always have the choice. Well, that doesn't seem that it could be the case if there's an actual external physical entity like a demon
Right.
that can cause havoc and disruption in a person's lives or in many people's lives. So that's all I say about that, is it just doesn't resonate with the teachings that make the most sense to me.
I understand, and I would love to agree with you, except we are having an experience with a young man who seems to have abandoned himself to such a point that it seems as if it's out of his hands and he is not capable or willing to make a choice to heal or see things differently. And it makes me wonder whether there aren't such things. I mean, the whole Roman Catholic Church says, yes, there are separate entities, demons. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, maybe there are. For my own experience, but I'm more integrated than that. But my own experience has been that that wouldn't be the case, that maybe I'm just too well, knock on wood, I'm not trying to tempt the fates, too well to let some such entity like that in. But I was sitting there wondering whether we should do this for Jacob. We should, whether we even believe in it or not, maybe we should try it because we're at our wits' end otherwise. So,
Can I just offer something,
yeah.
Susie?
Mm-hmm.
So you said about being more evolved than that, that it isn't interplaying with you and it's happening to Jacob.
Yeah.
So if the content of your mind is the only thing that's playing out here, you have entertained that in your own mind
Mm-hmm.
because you're even bringing it up in this conversation.
Yep.
So what in your mind is playing out that maybe you said that he's not seeing, you reference it as Jacob. And if you turn the mirror inwards and started asking the questions of self, what could be revealed for you?
Oh, that's all true. I don't disagree with a word of that. That's true. What am I making this mean?
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, if I sit with myself and ask myself, what am I making this mean? I've taken my attention away from Jacob, which may be the best thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it isn't as if I'm operating. I don't think I'm operating out of us. I mean, this has been going on for several years now. And it's on his end, it's gotten worse and worse.
But
I'm
you all
thinking,
believe it. You all believe that to be true because that energy, if we're in a relational field and everything operates by energy, the more mind energy that's going to that's real or that actually exists, that must play out as a reality in the group that's experiencing it. The minute the mind energy is collapsed, that has no meaning, it disintegrates.
but how's Jacob?
But there is no Jacob.
I'm not there yet, Susan.
Yeah.
I'm not advanced enough to accept that I just have to, I mean, this is a grandchild that is out there and not under any, I'm not in contact with him. I have made what I think is the healthiest choice for me is to think well of him, picture him well, and not communicate with him until and if he gets to the point where he can be civil.
Mm-hmm. And you know, when two or more gathered in the presence of love, and it doesn't have to be in your space, and knowing, and I know in my own world, when I experienced that, to hold the other person really capable, that the same love in me is in them. And I don't know their journey or their soul's patterning or what their life script is designed, but holding them capable of the love within them to find their own way.
Mm-hmm.
And then only focusing on healing my own mind and clearing the content of my own mind and looking within to see what's being brought up for me in the expression of your grandson going through what seems to be this hostile behavior, etc. And then processing all of those experiences that are within you. That will, that's all we can do. And I know it's hard. I offer that sympathy to you because I can't imagine having a grandson that you see that and you think he's being overtaken by these energies and that he has no control over and he won't find his way out. That must be extremely terrifying as a grandmother. Extremely terrifying. And then to go within to find where maybe in your life there might have been moments where you felt like you were powerless and you had no control.
Oh, that's
You never
definitely
saw a
true.
way out.
Yeah, I've been working the tools since 2017, and going over my old journals has showed me that they have allowed me to heal beyond what I'm sure I couldn't have done on my own. And I would love to have Jacob take advantage of those tools. Maybe what you're saying is I need to keep working on what's going on in me for sure. I also, though, might reach out to a bishop somewhere. I have to talk to my daughter. This is her son. Make sure she's an Episcopal priest. Make sure that's all right with her, uh, and try to stay out of total fix-it mode, which is one of my favorite bad habits or well-intentioned bad habits, but also do that as well as do this. I
And do you
don't
ask
want
God for help? Do you ask
yeah.
the ancestors? And because they don't have agency, do you ask the ancestors to come in to give you support as you go through this to navigate to find the highest truth?
I haven't done that.
Yeah, because I know in my experience, like ancestors, they don't have agency. You call upon them and they may have truth that we can't see with our 9-bit mind. And we're willing and ask me to see this in the highest mind. And God, what would you have me do through this to find the highest truth and then see how that settles rather than our mind trying to direct and take action, because that's coming usually from the human, not the higher evolution of self. I just offer that.
Thanks.
May I share something?
Yeah.
This is Celinda, Susan.
Hi, Celinda.
I love your hobo, dear heart. I am taking that to heart. Not only the heart, it's already in my brain cells. I can just see little hobo dancing on your shoulder,
Oh,
chirping away. And
I've been
flapping.
thinking about him a lot thanks to being featherless.
Nothing
So
by chance, right?
Yeah.
That's what I told Dr. Tim last night. Nothing by chance. That was not a mistake. Okay, on to the topic that you and Susan B, is that right, Susan? And Dr. Tim are talking about now. I've been going through a lot of experiences and self-reflections about my control issues. And I've realized that I am realizing, and I'm having a series of dreams that I believe are helping me realize this, that it's like Dr. Hawkins' book, Power versus Force. And control is actually force. I've come to conclude for this moment, that when I have a need to control, I always have a goal in mind, and I always have an outcome that I demand. And that outcome is tied to having it my own way. And so I just offer that, and I offer it in light of the way of mastery, where the 5 keys to the kingdom, and what I am working with, and as I shared last night in the support group, I'm coming to see that all events are neutral. Everything is neutral. And like Pema Chodron said about her teacher, he kept saying it's no big deal. And I just realized it's no big deal. And it's not only that, but it has to do with acceptance and allowance, and asking to be shown what is mine to do and what is mine not to do. And please, dear Celinda, keep your hands off of somebody else's life choices, even if they don't seem to have a choice in this dimension, because they've gone beyond their ability to have a choice. And so I just share that. And Susan B., thank you about calling in the ancestors, because, and I'm just practicing this, Susan. I haven't got it mastered. I'm still practicing, and I still am not even able to be at the stage where I could figure it out. And I keep asking. But I'm so grateful for the comment about bringing in the ancestors, because I realized I've been so focused on what doesn't work or what I can't do, quote unquote, or be, and seeing that as, oh, that's my downloads from my ancestors, I totally have forgotten the positive, the ancestors in my upline who have shown the light to the very best of their ability. And what you were saying, Susan B., not Susan B., what's the other Susan's name, last name?
Susan F.
Initial.
You can just, you can call me Susan F.
F, like Frank. Okay, that's good. So Susan B. and Susan F., I'm speaking to myself as well. Just to call on the ancestors, not to assume that only the unknowing is coming through from them, but also the knowing is. That was a sweet thought, Susan F. And that's all. It's about power versus control. And power, love is the greatest power in the universe. It's coming from the heart of love rather than the heart of fear. And that's my big journey, ladies and gentlemen. That's all. I'm complete.
All right, so let's come back to Susan Bingham. Where does all of this commentary and questioning leave you?
I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to investigate because I don't know what, I mean, I understand about my wanting to fix things. That's true. But now that this came up in my support group, maybe it came up for a reason too. And I want to talk to my daughter about it. I can't imagine it would hurt Jacob if we did this. So I'm going to look into it.
All right. Well, I would imagine there will be ways to do it that if there is a way to do it that is loving, you will find a way to do it. So it's loving and it's nurturing and it's well-intentioned, and if all you're doing is focusing your mind energy on prayer or aligning yourself with source or hoping for the best for the people that you care about, it'll all go well.
Well, Yeshua did it. So go for the experience, Susan.
Well, I don't care about the experience. I just want to do whatever might help Jacob. So
You're here.
And then, as always, what we continue to say is, if you really want to help others, help yourself, right? You have the dominion over what you do with your mind energy, and that is this powerful creative force, as Dr. Rice says. One of the worst things we've bought into over the years is the idea that we're not creators. And so if you step into that acknowledgement of your creative ability and the power of your mind energy to be a force for good, then keep doing your own work and keep clearing up that little space we call the mind that you have dominion over. Because as I like to quote from Abraham, where Abraham says, your most important creation in any moment is your emotion in that moment. What are you feeling? What are you creating as an experience of life in this moment? And the more you can shift that to be something loving and compassionate and expansive, the better everything's going to go, because we're all connected in this life. So when you help yourself, Course in Miracles says, when you are healed, you are never healed alone. And another line from the Course says, millions yet unborn will benefit from the work you do here today. So whatever else you're doing that you might do as an exorcism or with other people or hoping to help your grandson, the invitation with this work is first, last, and always be willing to do your own work around it. What is getting stirred up in you as you think about this?
I just felt very excited about the possibility that there may be another way to reach him when he seems so unreachable. And so on a path of self-destruct. Drug use, alcohol use, destructive toward the people who love him the most. We haven't known how to, the prayers and wishing him well, and picturing him well. Maybe those are helping. But this idea, when I was describing what was going on with him, how he was speaking to us in the group, not in our group, how I was talking in the group of how he speaks to his mother, my daughter. One of the members, who I find the most enlightened of all, said, "Gosh, he sounds as if he's got a demon." And I thought, that rang true. And it may not be true, but I am going to look into it. And I have been doing my own. You know that, Dr. Tim.
Right. I just say it because that's what we always invite people to do.
Yeah.
We invite ourselves to remember that, and we invite others as they come into this work to remember it's all an inside job. And
Mm-hmm.
you know,
Yeah.
we create a highly preferable life experience for ourselves when we stay focused on things we actually have control over and do the best we can with that.
Mm-hmm.
And we get more of what we can get out of life with a lot less frustration when we stay focused on the things we actually have control over.
All right. Well, thanks very much, everybody. I'm going to mute myself and carry on, Dr. Tim.
All right. You're very welcome and deserving. Anybody else have a question or a comment or an observation to share? Whether you're new here or you're...
Just what Michael always says. So he always, even meeting him, challenges me. So what you're saying is something outside of you has an effect or control over you, and always to bring me back to the inside. It's always the content of my own mind playing out in whatever that I'm seeing in my reality.
Yeah, it's amazing how our system first convinces us that the false is true, and then has us chasing it down left, right, and center. And how the entire system thrives on the drama and trauma that people generate. And that it isn't, the actual truth of it is, we don't have to do anything, and we don't have to generate the drama and trauma, and we don't have to go there if somebody else wants to. However, most people have not become aware of that actuality.
Yeah, and you said that the other day when you said to me, my need, when you offered what your observation, that my need to keep myself safe and to know was generating the fear of my experience. That was such a tipping point. And, I do this work and I'm aware, but there's still those, when I always say to my clients that, sometimes when you're inside the jar, you can't see the label. Somebody outside of you has to point it out to just open the gateway for Rachma to come in, and also Kuba at the back, so the perception can actually see the truth of what's going on.
Yep.
And the willingness, and to what you said in Christian's work, that and I loved to be in service to divine love, and if divine love is really who we are, that is the absolute truth, and we're removing everything that's in the way of that, which is in the content of our own mind. And if we trust in that, just resting in the trust of that, and then knowing that that is true, only truth is true, and truth is we are love. So even her grandson, Susan B's grandson, Jacob, is love. And if we hold on to that in our experience, and as you said, you just keep cleaning up our own minds. Yeah, it's a reminder for me. It really is. Her share is really a reminder. Just continue to do my own work, and whatever's showing up in my reality, and if it's causing me any discord, I must clean up my own mind, and what is being stirred up within me that needs the cleaning. So thank you for the share, Susan B., and also for everybody else's input, which I loved. I don't know who that is and the one with the phone number, but what she shared as well.
That's Belinda.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much.
Belinda from Oregon.
Yeah, very valuable as well. Just, you know, and obviously showing up and doing your work as well. I just so appreciate everybody. Thank you.
Well, and the thoughts that are bouncing around in me as I listen to you talk about that are that, you know, Christian's already been talking about in his Q&A that we're reading today. So do people actually come here and agree to do things that are hurtful to their grandmother and their... So, you know, you could spin a tale about this that says that your grandson is just playing a role to help you deal with your deep fear about being unable to help somebody that you care deeply about. So, can you, in this situation, choose for love over fear? Can you get better and better at holding that space of love within yourself and within your thoughts and sending those loving energies to your grandson, even when he's saying things that horrify your group members, or, you know, go directly against everything that you have been taught in your family is respectful and loving? And can you hold loving thoughts about his situation and him, even though he's showing something that's fear-based or, you know, really negatively intense? It isn't it isn't cut and dried. The other thing that came to mind while you were talking, Susan F., is the idea that it was right there at the tip of my tongue and it flew right out of my head. It has to do with the idea that if we're experiencing something and it seems to us to make no sense whatsoever, or it seems to be a very clear contradiction, so we would call it a paradox, or we would call it, you know, something that goes against the laws of nature or whatever. When we experience something like that, the very best use of our mind energy in that moment is to have the realization that if it looks like a paradox or a contradiction, it means I don't have access to the whole truth. The bottom line is, if it looks to be contradictory or this can't be happening, then all it means is my viewfinder is cranked down to a tiny little myopic space. And if I could get a bigger, broader perspective, if I could get a deeper perspective over time, it would resolve in a way that I would be very clear that everything fits together and makes sense, right? You've got this universe you're living in with spiral galaxies spinning around and all kinds of planets with potential life on them, including our own, and phenomenon that we've given names to, like black holes and you know, Einstein-Rosen bridges, and but none of it is limited to our thoughts about it. So we're only seeing a tiny fraction of the energy that's available. You know, even our scientists these days say that upwards of 80% of the mass and energy in the universe is something that goes beyond our ability to measure it. So we're only measuring it by inference. And we're only guessing that it's there and it has certain qualities because we can't measure it, see it directly. And so what do they call this stuff? They call it dark matter or dark energy. What does that mean? It doesn't mean that it has no light in it. It simply means that We haven't developed the measuring devices, the scanning devices that can track it yet. That's all that means. When you call something dark matter or dark energy, it doesn't mean that it's got a dark appearance. It means that whatever it is, wherever it is, we're guessing it's there because we're having influence on the physical realm that we can see, but we cannot measure and see those energies or that mass. And so if 80% or more of the universe that our hard scientists say is surrounding us, that we're living in, if 80% of it's invisible to us, just imagine what we don't know. Just imagine how silly it is anytime you run into somebody who talks about all this stuff that they know. And they're so certain of this, that, and the other thing. I'm just saying, pay attention to what our science tells us. What we can know so far is basically that we know next to nothing.
Thank you for that. That's just, thank you to realize that if things are in contradiction, that was so helpful. It just means we don't have access. If we're rooted in love, and that is the truth, and something's displaying to its contrary, then we don't know all the information yet. And then when we ask a question in curiosity, that creates the opportunity for the entire truth to be revealed. Does it not?
I would hope so. I mean, I don't know
Yeah.
how else it's going to get revealed unless
Yeah.
some mind is willing
Curious.
to ask, right, and to
Yeah.
receive.
Yeah. To be curious, because if we collapse it and not even open the field for new information and open our own minds to allow something new to come in, then yeah, we've trapped ourselves in our own illusion.
Well, and you may have heard me say before that if I go into a situation knowing that I know what I know and how I learned it, when I learned it, why it's true, I'm going to leave that situation knowing what I knew. I can't learn anything new if I go in thinking, I know what this is about, I know what has to happen here, etc. There are these two observations that I need to keep active in my mind if I hope to be able to learn something new. The first one is, it's simple enough to observe directly in my life, and that is, I don't know everything. There are things about astrophysics, there are things about gourmet cooking, there are things about woodworking that I don't know. I have a clue. There are things about my own profession. I've been in the field of doing therapy with people for over 51 years. There are things in this field that on a regular basis people say, oh, do you know about this work? Or do you know about this relative attachment theory? Or do you know about this book? And I say, no, never heard of it. After 51 years of being in and reading books and taking trainings, and so it's easy enough for me to have the active observation in my mind that I don't know everything. So I keep that observation active. And then the next observation is just an extension of that, which is that since I don't know everything, whatever it is I think I know is only partially true. At best, it's only partially true, and perhaps even completely false. So if I go into a situation holding those two observations active, now I have potential to learn. Now I can ask to be taught by life, by the moment, by the circumstances, by the people around me, and I can grow and I can extend my experience and I can choose for love more actively with a better field of view, with more clarity. But it begins with the observation that I don't know everything, or as the way of mastery would call us to, this divine ignorance, understanding that I don't really truly know what anything is or is for. I don't know what any of my brothers or sisters need. And yet I can learn. I can be an instrument of peace. I can be an instrument of that higher wisdom that we call the one mind or the Christ mind or the connectedness or the loving energy that is all. And I can ask it to teach me. Guy Finley says, in order to learn from something, you must make yourself subordinate to that from which you would learn. So I give up. I say, I don't know. And I don't know is the beginning of wisdom, right? It's the old adage from the Eastern philosophies that says, he who says he knows doesn't know. She who says she doesn't know, she's onto something.
Well, I'm going to say something here. My daughter was driving the other day, and across a 4-lane highway, she saw a tiny white kitten who was trying to get across the road, injured already, one leg not functioning. Tiny white kitten. She pulled over in the only place she could and waited for that cat, waited for a time a place where she could run across and get the cat. In the meantime, the cat made its way across 4 lanes with cars running over it but not on it. That little kitten got all the way to the other side. My daughter put her in the car and took her. She was heading for church. Instead, she said she went to the Church of the Veterinarian. $900 later, they had that cat on pain meds. They managed to hydrate the little animal. My daughter has the cat home, and the cat is beginning to play, even while dragging one leg that may have to be amputated. This is how I feel about my grandson. I know that boy. He's a sweetheart. And I want to help in any way I can. And maybe I have a ton of work to do on that.
Well, right now, the only work to do is to breathe and soften.
Yeah.
And just get in touch with what is this emotion that's up. And if nothing else, just start doing some EFT tapping with that emotion. Even though I have this emotion, I'm going to choose to believe it can get better, even though I don't know how. Just soften and allow, and ask yourself gentle questions if you're doing EFT tapping. What am I making this mean about myself and others? Or maybe I frame out the worksheet. And so I, Susan, who am love, am feeling this deep sadness or fear, and then figure out the thought you're using to create that emotion, and then the goal contained in the thought that's not getting met, and you've got a worksheet mapped out.
But meanwhile, I want to do something like wild, like calling a bishop and finding out about exorcisms. Can I do both?
Yeah, I recommend, as we always do, that you do whatever work you can to dismantle the intense emotions before you get busy doing thing.
Mm-hmm.
But so that's our time for today. I will join you in breathing and softening, and I look forward to any reports you want to give about how this work is moving forward for you, and or whatever you decide to do about an exorcism or reaching out to others. But as always, I thank you so much for your comments and questions and sharing. And I remind us all that we come from love. We're made of this stuff that we call love. We actually